Now ask yourself, how much did you love your high school? Enough to be a cheerleader? Enough to go back for reunions? We're going to start today's show with a story about a group of seniors who were so devoted to their old high school that they helped convert it into an apartment complex, and they moved in. The school was Wiley H. Bates High School in Annapolis, Maryland, the first and only high school for African Americans in the Annapolis area prior to desegregation. Today, it's not just a residence, it also features a senior center, a boys and girls club, and a cultural center dedicated to the school's founder. Let's learn how the new Wiley H. Bates Heritage Park came into being.
This place is a historic landmark, a turning point in the lives of African Americans in the state of Maryland. For a unique group of enthusiastic seniors, it's also home. It's called the Wiley H. Bates Heritage Park, and it's located in Annapolis, Maryland's capital. Not so long ago, it was Wiley H. Bates High School, and many of the people living here were its students.
Most all of the people who live here now are people I have known all my life. We was all such a tight community. All of us went to the same school and same churches.
Wiley H. Bates was born into slavery in 1859. After emancipation, he moved to Annapolis and became a successful businessman and alderman. Segregation was in force, and no schools existed for African Americans in the Annapolis area, so Bates dedicated himself to creating one.
The county school board said if someone would donate or provide the land, they would then assist with the construction of the school. So back then, he donated $500 of his money, which doesn't seem like a lot today, but it was a tremendous amount of money. And he donated that money for the purchase of land here on Smithfield Street. And as a result, the school was built.
The original building served as the county's only African American school from 1933 to 1966, when it was integrated and became a middle school. The doors were closed in 1981, and the school eventually fell into disrepair.
Those of us who attended the school, loved the school, just cherished the school, would drive by and it would sadden our hearts to see the school in the condition that it was. It was boarded up, graffiti over the building, weeds had grown up. It was just a deplorable sight. But we still had that hope that one day it would be restored.
That hope was realized when 3 companies agreed to convert the property into a mixed-use facility. Many former students helped to raise funds for the project. $27 million later, the old school has a new purpose. The Wiley H. Bates Heritage Park includes low-income housing for seniors, as well as a senior activity center, a boys and girls club, and a legacy museum devoted to telling the story of Wiley H. Bates and his work. More than half of the 71 apartments are occupied by alumni of Bates High School. When the residents first heard that the school was being converted into apartments, they jumped at the chance to move into their former classrooms.
I knew that they were getting it ready after I had gone to this, the Bates School. I said, well, I'm coming here to live.
The most important thing that I think people should know is the history and how many people were involved. It was nice for them to get it back to a stage where people can come back and see how much effort and time was put into it.
And this was the only school that the colored kids that went to, so I loved it.
What one gets when walking through a hall is that there's an ongoing reunion that goes on, and there's a sense of pride to being here, and there's also a sense of joy and ownership in living in this facility.
Before it was closed, Bates High School was an important gathering spot for the local African American population. That sense of community is preserved in the Legacy Center.
The mission of the Bates Legacy Center is to really give honor and substance and acknowledgement to our founder, Mr. Wally H. Bates, as well as faculty, administrators, and graduates of Bates High School in terms of their contributions to the community and as a result of this building being here for them.
The senior center that is attached to the apartments allows the residents to stay active. The Boys and Girls Club will give seniors and the younger generation the opportunity to share the Bates facility's tradition of community.
A lot of the programming that the residents participate in during the daytime hours occur at the senior center. And we are in the process of developing some intergenerational programming with the Boys and Girls Club.
They have so many different things down there for the seniors to participate in, such as ceramics, knitting, computer learning, all kinds of activities. It's a wonderful place for the seniors to be in. I always call us recycled teenagers. That's all seniors are. We've been recycled and we have a good time living together.
Much like the seniors who live there today, Wiley H. Bates High School has matured into a valuable source of knowledge and community heritage.
This was a facility that was a segregated facility. It was supposed to be separate but equal, but we did not always have the best facilities, but we made the most of what we had. And that's something Thurgood Marshall said, make the most of what you had. And we did. We had an excellent faculty, outstanding administration, and students made the most out of it. And as a result, we have outstanding community leaders and persons who are products of this great school.
Joining me now to tell us more about Wiley H. Bates Heritage Park is Kathleen Koch. Ms. Koch is the Executive Director of Arundel Community Development Services Incorporated, or ACDS, a nonprofit organization. Maryland's Anne Arundel County hired ACDS to manage the redevelopment of the Wiley H. Bates High School in 1995, and ACDS also secured financing for the project. Ms. Koch has over 20 years of experience in housing and community development. Welcome to the Daily Apple.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit more about the history of Wiley Bates High School.
Okay, it was the only high school for the African American community in Anne Arundel County. It opened in 1930 until 1966 when Anne Arundel County finally got around to integrating its school system. And then it operated as a middle school from 1966 to 1980, and then it was closed. And for about the last 20 years, people have talked about the redevelopment of it.
Let's talk about Wiley Bates himself, though. Tell me a little bit about his history and who he was.
Wonderful man, a real true hero. He was actually born into slavery in 1859 down in North Carolina, and then, of course, was freed in 1865, and his mother was originally from the Annapolis area, so he came back this way. And by the the early 1900s, he was probably one of the wealthiest men in the city of Annapolis. Totally self-taught, never went to school.
And how did he make his money?
Well, he first started selling wood, logs at the down by the dock, and oysters on the dock. And every time he made 50 cents, 70 cents, he'd go and buy more materials. And he finally had one of the largest stores in downtown Annapolis, and he actually serviced not only the African American community, but also the white community.
So then he began to really give back to the community as well,
yes,
correct?
He sold that. He sold the store, and then he started to buy real estate. And he believed in pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, and he believed really strongly in education. And what he did was, back in the 1930s, the school system really wasn't required to provide separate schools for the African American community. If they came up with their own piece of land, then the school system helped with building the building, providing the teachers. So Wiley put up the first $500 to buy this piece of land and where the school was built.
And at what point did the school begin to lay dormant?
In 1980.
So it was dormant for 15 years, is that correct, or 20?
20.
And in 1995, tell me a little bit about what happened and how it got
Well, the
reestablished?
community for many years struggled with the whole redevelopment of it, and there were a lot of different opinions, to put it mildly, in trying to bring about the redevelopment, a lot of different interests. So in 1995, we came on the scene, and we did a complete analysis of it and figured out all the different sources of financing and who the users were going to be, and worked very closely with the community to make sure we had a project that everybody was in full support of and happy about on the day that it opened.
But how did it come to be a home for retirees or for mature adults, as opposed to anything else it could have turned into?
Well, actually, it's interesting. Schools make very good, old schools make great housing for the elderly, because the classrooms are easily converted into residential units, small residential units for the elderly. And Wiley Bates actually, in his will, had hoped to establish a home for the elderly at one point too. So it was nice that the two needs came back together.
Is that right? So in his will, he actually put that, and then the two joined together.
Yeah, it was almost a little miracle on its own.
I would think that an old school might not be equipped, though, in terms of elevators and all that. Did you just gut it completely and have to make it mature friendly?
We actually renovated it according to the historic standards. And so a lot of the original tiles, the hallways, a lot of that stuff was left so that you can still respect its history. But we were able to bring in the elevators and the mechanical and electrical and cooling and heating systems to upgrade it completely.
Well, hang tight with that thought for a minute. We're going to be right back. It's time for us to take a short break, but don't go anywhere, because we'll be back in a moment to continue our conversation with Kathleen Koch about Wiley H. Bates Heritage Park and the seniors who helped make it a reality.
Do you know, how long did Wiley H. Bates attend school as a child? A, 2 days, B, 1 year, C, 3 years. Do you know, how long did Wiley H. Bates attend school as a child? Answer, 2 days. As successful and influential as he was, Wiley H. Bates was completely self-taught.
My guest is Kathleen Koch, Executive Director of the Arundel Community Development Services Incorporated, or ACDS. We're talking about Annapolis's Wiley H. Bates High School and how it became Wiley H. Bates Heritage Park. We were talking before we went to the break a little bit about how you made it more senior friendly, but still kept in mind all of the traditions and the heritage of the building. Can we talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, yes. The historic standards. We were able to save one piece of the oldest part of the building was built in 1930, and we were able to save that one part of that and create an actual museum. And so we took that, but we found the blueprints from the 1930s, and we actually took that back to exactly how it looked back then. So
the entire building, or just the museum area?
That one room.
Did you really?
Yes,
how fascinating.
yes.
Now, senior citizens in that community, and especially the low-income seniors, really fought to make this their home. What happened? Tell me about that, and how did they convince you that there was validity behind it?
Well, it wasn't just convincing me. I always said the difficult thing about this project is all three levels of government had something to say about it. The city controlled the land use, the county owned the building, the state also had a say in everything that happened. So everybody had to agree. So there was a couple different proposals before this one that didn't go forward, that people weren't happy with. So there was an advisory committee that was put together in early 1990s, and that group finally came to an agreement on what the uses were going to be. And so it was a pretty historic moment when that happened too. But
I can imagine. What about fundraising? I can imagine it cost quite a bit to rebuild this entire and to dedicate this project.
$27 million.
$27 million.
$27 million.
And how did that fundraising happen?
Well, there was 12 different sources of financing. There were low-income housing tax credits, historic tax credits, state money, county money, federal money, and private also. So there was a lot of different sources, a lot of grant applications.
Did the residents have a part in fundraising at
all? No, not the actual residents, but the Boys and Girls Club continued to do fundraising.
And the Boys and Girls Club is also housed there, is that correct?
Yes, yes, the facility, their regional facility is there, yes. So it's one of the first times they've tried where putting seniors with the younger children. So
the former students, were they actually involved in this whole process?
Very much so, very much so. Especially when we did the design of the courtyard. The courtyard's a memorial courtyard, and we had to respect the historic feeling of it, but we wanted to make it softer taken some of the history of the people who graduated from there, the teachers, and so we had a couple what we called design charrettes, and we had a bunch. The former students all came in, and we worked together and actually put together that design.
So tell me a little bit about the profile of the residents themselves. Who are they?
I believe that approximately about 60% are former students who graduated from the school. We actually have people graduated in the 1940s. And so it's for people who are at 60% and below the median income. So it's
all the residents
yes,
are? Okay.
Yes, yeah. And so people from the greater Annapolis area, they had no problem at all filling the 71. The people were waiting.
And there's a wait list.
Yes.
So are there other initiatives within the Maryland area or within other cities that you've heard about where they are restoring high schools like this?
Well, I think that the people are trying to, and I hope that they can learn from what we've learned from so many years of working on putting this whole thing together, that it takes a real collaborative effort of all different people within the community and a lot of different sources of financing to make it happen.
Kathleen, are you concerned at all about the aging in place and of the residents and how they're, in their 80s and 90s?
Definitely.
What are your plans for that?
Well, what we hope to do, what we're doing with some other senior complexes in our community is we're working to fund congregate services so that people can remain in their units before having to move into a nursing home, where you provide services with helping them clean their homes or get to various doctor's appointments and different things like that and checking in on them on a daily basis. It's an expensive thing to do that, but we're looking at ways to help come up with financing to help these people stay where they are.
Why do you think it took 20 years to make this happen?
There was a lot of different feelings about the building in the community. I think in some way, to say some people maybe wanted to see it go away. It reflected a hard time in history, separate but equal, and all the different people who it represented and all the different levels of government who had to come to an agreement. It was just a complicated...
A little bit of bureaucracy there, I assume.
Yeah.
What about the activities? What can a person who moves into the Heritage Park expect?
Well, the really nice part is our senior center, which serves the whole greater Annapolis area, is right there. So the 71 people who live there can come right over to the senior center. And they have all kinds of physical activities. Lunchtime, they have all kinds of performers, people singing, and card games, and they have computer classes, and they travel to different places, and all kinds of things going on at the senior
That's
center.
wonderful. I also love the merge, the intergenerational merge with the Boys and Girls Club and the mature adults. How did that come to fruition?
We struggled. What we did at the very beginning is that we called in probably 4 or 5 different housing developers, and we sat them down and said, this is what we're thinking about doing. Are you guys going to be interested? Can we make it work? And basically what they said, as long as you secure the seniors and have the seniors, if the seniors feel secure, you can mix the different ages together.
Do the seniors seem to appreciate that and like
I think so. I think it's still developing. We only opened in September, and I think it's got a little ways to go, but they've just formed a committee of people to come together and talk about what maybe the kids can do and what the seniors can do at the Boys and Girls Club.
What are some of the things? What do you think the benefits are of having this intergenerational atmosphere?
I think that there's a lot of opportunity for the seniors to help out at the Boys and Girls Club, first of all, with whether it be classes or teaching or grandparenting, especially after homework help and things like that. And then also it's going to be interesting to see what the kids want to do with the seniors, the other way around.
Yeah, that would be very interesting, because I think as time progresses and as they age in place, there will probably be much more of a need, because they won't be able to get out as much, to have that internal joy from the kids that are there. The historical registry, tell me a little bit about that and the building being under that auspices.
Okay, so the building's on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's on the register not necessarily for its architectural significance, but for its cultural significance. And there's a lot of places across the country that were separate but equal facilities. But what this school was, it was separate but equal, but it was also the center of the community. It was its cultural center. So it didn't stop at 4 o'clock when school ended. There was all kinds of activities. This is one place where the African American community could come and really enjoy all kinds of different things.
So if I was a visitor, I mean, it sounds fascinating to me. I'd love to come and see what you're doing there. And if I was a visitor and I came there, I could clearly see the museum that's there and see how how it used to look, but what other things would I be able to see when I arrived?
Well, the really nice thing is you got to arrive and to come to the courtyard where we have a statue of Wiley H. Bates, and then we have the whole story of the whole building in the school. The senior center is opened every day, and so is the Boys and Girls Club. So now the residents, you know, it's a little bit more controlled because people live there. So,
Yeah.
but the other facilities are open at all times so that you can come in and see them.
So from the high school reunion perspective, did a lot of the residents go to school together that are there now?
Yes, yes, yes.
And so, I mean, that's been how many decades that they've known
A
each
long
other?
time, long time. And what the people don't get, what was really fascinating was at the opening, because that's when you felt what these people felt for their school. I mean, I don't know about you, I don't remember my high school song. I don't remember much about.
Do you want to?
Right, exactly, right. And these people, they know their high school song. It meant a whole lot to them. And so they came out in droves for the grand opening.
I mean, what a
then-
beautiful thing and what a full
Yeah.
circle. I mean, to be able to go from, you know, being in high school, living your life, and then to go back and live with the people that you grew up with. That's
Right,
really a nice,
right.
that's a luxury. Well, thank you for being here. This was interesting information. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, I enjoyed it.